Independent artists, designers, musicians, and content creators are expected to compete in generating the assets and products comprising the contemporary humanities. Even worse, these diffusion models style transfer and diffuse templates via complexified plagiarism, theft and fakery at insane scales, just to sell it off for pennies worth of compute, and no pay or credit to the creatives who involuntarily contributed to the training datasets. Loss of livelihood, loss of culture, loss of fulfillment, loss of spirit. That's the omen. That's where the fear comes from. Diffusion models and their outputs cast black magic spells on their subjects. They don't realize it's all a trick, a mirage, a fruitless fake, pretty androidal butterflies designed to attract other flying automata. I find AI-generated works, art, music, etc., not worth much of my attention. If I detect something's 100% a product of prompts with little to no creative input on the user side, I reject it, move on without reflection, or guard against its influence. Its tastelessness, as it is, and in context. Its usage by professionals and their kind is lazy, and I dislike it, especially when I see it in popular media, legacy, video on demand, YouTube, streaming. It's a conditioned response I have, as anyone should if they hold stock in the humanities, and I don't have pride in my aversion to AI when creating and consuming the arts. However, I don't share the same enclave phobias of creatives who decry diffusion models, shaming those who employ them and mindlessly traffic their wares. I'm indifferent to AI-generated art and the popular adoption of the tech. Popular media has been stale and shitty for at least a decade. This statement is generally true, prevalent among popular opinion. Examples to the contrary are stifled by the popular's weight and quantity. Notable outliers are stiff-armed by the productivity fueling the popular. In this generation's catalogs, discographies, filmographies, there's sparse innovation, freshness, and an absence of expressive bumps. And what is there suspiciously resembles what diffusion model clients can shit out today, qualitatively indistinguishable from tomorrow's vomit of generated art and music. This is a true enough characterization of popular culture, especially true of the popular. What we've largely recently consumed fails to entertain, impress, and excite us to the degree as it had before. Nothing we've streamed as of late feels representative of a cultural demarcation.
But we have an entirely different environment in the milieu of the late 20th century. Obviously, this is a result of rampant consumerism by the public without the necessary media literacy to—
I'm gonna stop you right there. The people of the past, the cultural denizens of pre-2008 societies, were at least as preoccupied with consumption as we are. Take the boob tube and add the nightmare rectangle. We're more so overstimulated, time-suckled, but no less preoccupied. Yet the humanities of their time absolutely brain-warped and vitalized them in daily life and social circles. They were transfixed with the popular, the trendsetters, the conversation-worthy, while we seem to be perpetually engaged in some kind of mental foreplay, one-hit wonderism, nursing years-long sugar-sodium hangovers, comparatively. So what is it? Where's the rub? Why does it all suck? Am I just projecting? Probably. But it can't just be our temporal proximity, our awareness of the gay categorical culturizing, or the rapid leapfrogging interests of the masses. Content creators feverishly writing attention invoices to stay glutinous in this content as adware wheat market. One can point to the 20th century's generational leaps, the aesthetic conceptual bounds, and if you prefer additional muddying, the political hubbubs, to see an environment where funders, culture producers, and their consumers were just as self-referentially aware and in recursive conference with the dominant culture. Without the informatic luxuries and distributed screens that bring us great satisfaction today. They weren't plugged in like us, yet electricity flowed. Perhaps they weren't as sophisticated, as jaded, lacked the refinements indelible to the 21st century, but you can't point to the fever-pitch progression of the 60s to the 70s and say, wow, they barely leveled up. Ain't shit compared to 2010 through 2020. Realizing this, or at least trying on these glasses for size, isn't a reactionary cop-out or a fantastical Mandela of the popular. At least it doesn't have to be. It's not necessarily the result of desensitization, a kind of masterpiece fatigue, nor is it representative of that continual dance of the passé, or indulgent in false nostalgias, grafted from your prepubescent adolescent fandoms and fetishes. No, you're not some woke bitching online Republican because you got culturally induced depression and clinical treatment is outside of your network. The purveyors of the popular let you down. Popular media hasn't respected you in quite a while. You can sensationalize plastic shit for only so long. I must stress the use of the word popular here. What's propped up by the culture industry, whatever that entails, deserves scathe and shame, and not all the works outside of it. You're disappointed ultimately. And yeah, whatever, I'm projecting, so what? What does this have to do with being indifferent to AI?
Well, ATTAR, it really doesn't sound like you're indifferent to AI.
Tell me, when was the last time you've been wowed, mind-fucked, entered the sublime? I bet you a piece of popular media from the past 5 to 10 years didn't take you there. Oh, it did? You have? Well, even still, what of the rest? Has any of it really taken you there? Do you even want that? What if you never came back from the terror? What if you could never enjoy the mid after? Isn't that like getting your sense of self, proportion, reality raped, but not in a good way? What were you wearing? And on that note, isn't it more likely the creatives, artists, musicians haven't really produced the value they say they have? This supposed value that AI is looting from the creative enterprise. And here's the point of this video. Popular media consumers deserve the soulless facsimile of AI-created works because they just don't care. It's all the same to them. They're unable to develop their taste without the help of marketers and algorithms. Their gravitations are that of lame children. They're the ones who just don't get it and never will. It takes tens of minor talents to cater to their interests and a single marketing campaign to modulate their habits. They develop their opinions from YouTube commentary and Instagram comments. They can't visualize an apple. They're barely human. They've eaten from the bin for too long. The normies weren't just normative customers, NPCs with skippable cutscenes. No, they were oppressive, destructive forces of mediocrity. Waves of demand for uninspired, refined, vapid, mass-produced plastic desires followed in their wake. The largest customer base for culture spawned tightly woven industries to service them. Industries of consensus and dominating celebrity. Industry that spored bullshit and spiritual malaise employed by harlots of false capital and diminishing spectacle. Milked by beasts of burden. Extracting bummy cash flows through spreadsheets and gratuity schemes. And the advent of, quote, AI will only spread it all around like an STD. It may kill a few creative, skilled professions, but think of all the IT and middle management jobs that'll be created. Lump of labor fallacy, am I right? We took the egalitarian approach. We shielded the elites and the moguls from critique, took on the labor from their minions, went ham on the DIY, created the largest trade union known to man, the union of user agents and servers. And what does this union produce? Well, it produces traffic, attention, data, clicks and filled carts, behavioral patterns, wish lists, and discount codes. Diffusion models are the perfect endpoints of this endless pastiche of the past haunting us, the statistical hells of the people's content consumption habits. So-called AI will create for the masses endless popular enriched products outside the purview of the culture industry, and that'll be good, grand even, because we'll all be richer for it. The difficulty of creation, the harrowing work required of free expression, the hard labor of humanity's beautification, and the spent bones of legacies, all that can be automated now, apparently. We've sent most of our menial tasks in manufacturing abroad. Goods of desire and objects of utility can be made at a lower cost elsewhere, shipped direct to consumer. So why not our souls then? Why should I live in a future where my paltry efforts to create and consume meaningfully are expected of me, here, now, and onward, locally, at my expense, with my brain and body, and my small capabilities? When I could just easily outsource that, to gig workers, to China, to a server in Nevada, kick my feet up and be free to believe. Everything contrived and concocted just for me. And not just for me, but for everyone else too. And that sounds great. That's the future that was always teased, overpromised, undelivered. And when we arrive there, that future, gaunt and husked, sloven and gooner-eyed, it'll be dope for a while, but then it'll decay, lead to rot and malaise. Cannibals will roam and maybe a world war will keep us busy. But we'll for sure blame our sufferings on some totalizing thing like AI, capitalism, culture wars, presidents, the WEF, Jews, socialism, wokeness. We'll blame something, anything, but ourselves. At the end of the day, not at the end of days, this is the fault of creatives, artists, musicians, the culture makers. This is the fault of the culture makers. This is also the fault of the idiotic, poor, pornophilic souls who allowed themselves to become the proverbial consumer. This is my fault, and I apologize for that, dear viewer. Diffusion models and computer-generated art was inevitable, yet the aims and the trajectory of its development steered toward appeasing the lowest standards of entertainment, of content creation, the most trodden-on paths of desire, and some of us are upset about that. I argue they're upset for the wrong reasons.